I know there's not a lot of channel interest in PTSD and ways to cope with it, but some things I just think are important enough to talk about. This is one of my flowers. It's a very basic flower that the dog and I had actually been here a few minutes ago on our walk, and I'm using these flowers as markers to get home, believe it or not. Since I almost lost my leg and then had surgery, I have to walk. And yet, when I had a bad seizure with the whole mop incident, I seem to have some kind of a little brain injury going on, worse than the one before. And one of the things I'm doing is getting confused and replacing words. In other words, I was thinking of fabric, and I kept saying tarp, and I really meant rock. Things like that. So what I'm doing is I'm using a bright yellow flower or a bright flower to be little landmarks to get home. And I'm thinking of homeless veterans who have to deal with stresses all the time. You know, a lot of people with PTSD have, it's called agoraphobia. They don't like to leave where they are. And even if you're in like a homeless tent or something, sometimes it's just better to stay where you are. You feel safer. But if they have to go get water or whatever, in my case, the stress of dealing with traffic, because my PTSD is from a car accident, the stress of dealing with traffic can make me have a blip out, and I won't remember where I am. So, flowers. Now, as I'm walking up to the next flower I did, I know it's not going to rain for probably a couple of days anyway. We had the end of what was Hurricane Ida come through, and you know, the Cape where I am wasn't supposed to get that much, and at the last minute we had tornado warnings off of Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, which headed right for me. And so from like midnight till 2:30 in the morning, the dog and I were ready for the movie Twister. And just something like that. So we were fine. The tornado actually hit in the next town. We were fine, and it was no big, huge deal. But something like that can completely throw somebody with PTSD, because it's a life or death situation. Everybody else in the town was going through the same thing, but when you have PTSD, something like that, you have to be ready to die at any minute. Now, the other reason I have the camera on as we're walking up here is the traffic. A little while ago, when we were up here to do this other flower, there was like 2 trucks, 3 trucks maybe, but this is a very busy road. It's also the road I have to cross to kind of go anywhere. And it's only about maybe 6 o'clock in the morning, and already there's a lot of traffic. So here I am at the second flower that I did. It's purple. You can't really see it very well. Now, when I was here a few minutes ago, I had the dog with me. My point in making this video is that me coming up here and taking the time, I was terrified when the dog and I were up here a few minutes ago, because of the cars going by. even though there were only a few trucks. Because my PTSD is from a car accident. And the problem with PTSD is that you don't know what the triggers are. In my case, I have made great strides in facing the fear. I've come up here with a camera and taken pictures of dump trucks because like a dump truck coming at you is like the worst case scenario. I almost got squashed by a dump truck in a winter storm once. The truck couldn't, the visibility was zero, and I had to pick up my son at daycare, and people weren't supposed to be on the road, but I had to go get him, and the truck almost squished us. But I've come up here and stood in the road and gotten the truck to honk as it went by. You know, you have to face the fear in some way. And so me coming up here and taking the time to do this flower is terrifying. And part of the reason I've made PTSD type videos is because I think the public needs to be aware that, I mean, the basis to the fear is real. Any one of these cars could swerve off the road, or the guy's on a text or something and hit me. Now, is that probably going to happen? No. But the possibility of it has me at high alert. And so now I have another flower where if I'm going to the store, you know, I have to walk now with my leg. So I'm more or less being forced outside. Just like any homeless veteran might be forced to go get water or food or something. Anyway, I might as well have flowers so that I can find my way home. I have to add a couple of things here. That's somebody's fender. You know, you think I'm nuts? I'm not nuts. That's somebody's fender that wasn't there yesterday. And over here that I just passed is dog hair, or coyote hair or something. Probably dog hair. Why is there a bunch of dog hair there? Life is fragile. Okay, now I'm back home from that, and when you go through something like that, you know, there's people all through this neighborhood that walk to the store all the time. And they have all of those same stresses that I just showed you, but maybe without the PTSD from a car accident. What you have to do when you have PTSD is keep a balance. So that was drawing flowers under very scary conditions. Now I come home and I sit very calmly on my front step, and I really like my house and everything, and I draw a flower that's smaller, and I bring the control of the PTSD through my artwork, very simple flowers, back home. And so the final definition of drawing flowers for me is actually my fine art and my years of being an artist. So you can look at it two ways. I took my flowers on a walk, but basically when I'm at home, I'm an artist. So it's not just a therapy of grab some chalk. This is Crayola chalkboard chalk. It's not just grab some chalk and do this as an exercise and then forget about it. Make it a part of the positive. Make it a part of the positive. make it the positive. So if you draw in chalk all the time, which again is very cheap, easy to do. Right now I'm drawing on a piece of slate that came out of the garden. You can draw on rocks, you can draw on a lot of things. But by doing it at home after you go somewhere, or after you subject yourself to whatever you think your trigger is, you're taking your little experience that you just had, like in my case, go facing traffic, and winding down from it, but taking control of it. And then your flower, or sailboat, or apple, or orange, or whatever you decide to draw, army helmet, even, I guess, a rifle. If I were in the army, or former army, and my problem was the battle, I might draw rifles. You know, but even if you do that, when you come back, then you do it well, under comfortable conditions, and little by little what happens is all of a sudden you're better when you go out into your stress area. You feel better. You know that you have some control. Now, I say chalk and rocks or sidewalks, blackboards, anything that's easy to obtain, anything that's easy to keep with you all the time. I have little like 3x5 pieces of wood that I painted black so I could keep one in my pocket. But that's so I can write down, please call 911. These are all coping skills, and people don't realize that PTSD is not a mental illness. It's a physical brain injury. And so these are coping skills that are part of my life now. In my case, I was an artist anyway, but using art to take control of your environment. So this is good enough. It gets my idea across, and it's going to sit right there for the day, because I did a really good thing by walking up and dealing with traffic. And I walked home and I made more flowers. So the balance becomes the artwork and where did you put your flowers today? And not, oh my gosh, I almost got hit by a car. Which I did. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm thinking about flowers. Now this is where an exercise like this can lead. This is one of my pastel paintings. I just unpacked it. I had a lot of my stuff packed, my artwork. And this is one of the problems with framed artwork and why there's so much maintenance on framed work. You can see on the back I've got it mounted, and then I've got watercolor tape holding a backing board in place, so it's really securely in there, except, especially with a pastel drawing, this one has slipped down a little bit. So it has to be all taken out of there and probably reframed or rematted. This is gallery ready. This is what they look like when you need to have them ready for a gallery, except without the painting shifting in there. This is what it can lead to. There's my little flowers, and now I'm adding them all over the town. And, you know, I just have to say, beyond the painting is the Davenport guys who are here to do landscaping or something, revving a truck. I mean, Go away already. These are the positives. These are the balance. If you want to be an artist, you can be an artist. You can start on sidewalks, steps, rocks, chalkboards. You can, I've got many videos up about graphite and oil and all the professional level art. But this, like I said earlier, is good enough. Because what you're doing is you're expressing the control that you took over PTSD. So, do you have to do it like this? No. Can you if you want to? Yes. You are in control. Now, because I brought up rifles or trauma that veterans might have, I can't tell you what to do because you have the control. But what I can tell you is, at no time do I recommend that you inflict your trauma on anyone else. Flowers are safe. Everybody loves flowers. I can tell you that as an artist. Everybody loves lighthouses, sailboats, fruit. You can pick images and use the actual action of drawing to release the trauma. But if you do, and this is good, I don't draw rifles, but if you do start to draw rifles all over the place, you have to keep in mind somebody might at some point, and remember I don't draw rifles, somebody at some point is going to say, this is a sign of violence, this is a sign that you need help. And if you need help, then maybe you need help. But, so that's a rough idea of a musket. But if you do that in color and very detailed, and somebody is finding rifles all over town, what I'm saying is, when you're doing this, it's a social experiment. So here's a rifle on my back step because they're cutting a lawn, I think, in the front. Now I'm going to go back in the house, and I'm going to see how much this bothers me, because it's on my step. It might be something I take somewhere else and draw. Is it how I want to present myself? Do I want to present myself as loving rifles and guns? A lot of people use guns safely and with good conscience and everything. But if it's a trauma, stay away from kids' parks, is what I'm saying. Don't go to the local kids' park and draw all kinds of battle scenes, because you're going to scare the children. It's really one of the major clues to being a good artist. On the surface, it looks like you're presenting your artwork to the public. The real trick is being able to draw a flower of any kind and have your meaning in that, even though the public might see a flower. So I guess my recommendation would be get some army green chalk or camo chalk, draw camo flowers, or draw G.I. Joes, something that is overall socially acceptable, because if you have PTSD, you're also socially acceptable. You don't have to be an outcast or a weirdo or strange or whatever, even if you feel that way. So flowers are safe, fruits safe, ocean scenes are always safe, whales, birds, anything that anybody can look at, because that is where you fit in. So if you're having nightmares of rifles or battles or something like that, then a suggestion would be to go to the post office website, see if they have an army stamp, and draw that all over town. So do a postage stamp really well. So here's the army guy. And this is just, and you put these little postage stamps all over the town. And then you are developing the trick of art, which is maintaining your own definition no matter what other people see. A couple of last things I wanted to add to this, and I'm out at the front again. I'm avoiding the noise from the lawnmower. Don't worry. The first one is, don't worry if this is uncomfortable to do at first. I think it was about 2 days ago, I was thinking to myself, okay, I want to walk up to the sidewalk by the main road, and I want to put a flower up there. And I walked up there and couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I felt it was too, I was exposing myself to the world too much. In my case, maybe because I have been a fine artist for a long time, and I don't sell my work, I keep my work. I'm actually a very private person. And I was like, why would I do that? Why would I put a flower on the sidewalk? And it took me a couple of days to be able to do it today, because I became used to the idea that I need it. It's a tool I need to remember to get home, and I'm sure anyone would understand that. And that's kind of what I meant by presenting yourself. Do you have a legitimate reason for drawing on the sidewalk? Can you, if you had to, sign your name to it and not be ashamed of it? Those are codes of honor that all people have, that the military generally exemplify. But even for somebody like me, I don't want to be violating anybody else's space. I don't want to be bothering people. At the same time, I want to be able to say what I need to say. So when you're dealing with public space, what you want to do is fit in, have a reason to be there, and be able to explain yourself if the local sheriff should wander by. You have to keep that in your mind. Public space, they have a lot of laws about graffiti and defacing things and stuff. But I think the most important thing is not to inflict any trauma on other people. The other thing I wanted to say is, even if it's scary to do this, it's not really going to hurt anybody. It's not going to hurt you to try this. And it's, there aren't very many negatives here, except making sure you're not putting your trauma on someone else. I can't think of any negatives. As long as you're not violating someone else's safety or sense of safety, I can't see that there's much wrong with doing this. And I'm not a doctor. I'm somebody who's had PTSD for over 30 years. I was diagnosed before soldiers were diagnosed. Before they were widely diagnosed. I tend to think that nobody had the diagnosis until after I had, and it was actually a child psychologist, like the 5th or 6th doctor I had gone to, who recognized the symptoms of PTSD. He had seen it in children. So I've been at this for a long time, and the goal is to maintain your own personal balance without harming anyone else. The goal is to realize continually that you have a right to be who you are. and not to let other people's opinions, especially when it comes to artwork. So I can paint like the masters, or I can do this. And this is the tool I need right now, and not painting like the masters. Don't let anybody pressure you into feeling that you have to be more than you are. Life really is fragile. And if you're a veteran with PTSD, you've gone through something that other people haven't gone through. And yet you have to maintain your balance. This is one way that might help.